Hey, Codsmacks, what's up? Welcome to installment 8 of Liam Small desperately clings to what's beginning to decline in his sanity. No, it's another installment of Liam Small reads Abridges, A History of Newfoundland by D.W. Prowse, 20 pages at a time, every day, until the bars reopen. Yeah, I hope you guys are doing okay. I've started to enter into a small recession, insanity. Just feeling a little bit cooped up the last couple of days. Hope you guys are doing good. I hope if this is helping anybody in the world, great. Starting to get, I don't know if it's Stockholm Syndrome with regards to this book or whatever, but anyway, let's dive right into it, because this is my second time doing this shit today, and I kind of want to just power through, if that's okay with you guys. So last we talked earlier this morning when I had coffee. I'm on to wine now. Last going off, we talked about how the English and the French were setting up laws which were kind of stupid for the time. They were ancient laws that said the first guy in the harbor during a fishing season was kind of the guy who could be the admiral and the judge, jury, and executioner of everything that went on in that harbor. He kept track of offenses and reported to the king, shit like that. Kind of a stupid rule because it was like an ancient rule. It was made back in the day. It was only supposed to last a week, supposed to go week to week, not season to season. Because if you just have some arsehole who woke up early that morning, you're going to have a shitty year. So this was for England and Newfoundland as well as France and all the coasts of New France. New France at the time was kind of like Nova Scotia. New England kind of goes down, depends on when you're talking about, but France had a lot of control back in the day. I don't know, fucking look at a map. Something, they weren't allowed to fish at night either for some reason in the charter, and funny enough, it says in the book, this exercise in some places still exists today. I don't know if he means in Newfoundland or wherever. He also doesn't mean today because, hey, this book was written in 1895. Why don't you go ahead and take a drink, anybody who's playing at home. Next, we move on to the Star Chamber rules, although, Yeah, so this patent. Okay, yeah. So this whole thing, this whole law here, I'm just gonna mention here. When this extraordinary patent was granted, the Newfoundland settlers had been in possession of their homes for a long period. They had built houses and stages and cleared out small patches of ground. All this expenditure of money and labor, all their lawful title to their hard-earned possessions, was ruthlessly swept away in order to gratify the cupidity of a few courtiers. And this is Kirk and what's his face. So it's really shitty. All the people who'd set up and spend time there, now they're starting to get fucked over because the king granted some crazy new monopoly to the guys who run the colonies there. And I've got a kind of a bigger chunk here. It says, and nothing shows more clearly the treachery and gratitude of Charles than his dealings with Lord Baltimore respecting his new grant. Now, what happened here was, the King Charles, he was just being a shitty guy. So the New Deal didn't just fuck over the settlers and stuff like that. Even Lord Baltimore had written in, and he was kind of like, hey, I want to make a new grant, a new patent and stuff like that. And then the king was like, yeah, best kind, that's no problem. We'll honor all that shit. And then basically he up and gave Baltimore's grant to Hamilton and Kirk. So it's two other guys. So guys like Baltimore and Bacon, who were there before got fucked over to Hamilton and Kirk, saying that, and the excuse is oh, well, they'd kind of just abandoned the colonies. These guys, they weren't still there. And meanwhile, Baltimore was still there going yeah, I just wrote you asking for provisions. What are you fucking talking about? So Charles is a bit of a dick, just kind of looking after his buddies, classic fucking deal, man. I think this chapter, I got a little bit riled up reading this, right? So he does that, and then the whole monopoly of the island, the whole, all the rights and stuff go to Kirk and Hamilton, and maybe one or two other guys. But so everyone just gets completely fucked. All the permanent settlers, everybody had been there, right? And then, the boys said they just abandoned the colonies. So what the fuck are you talking about? So it just says here, the contents of this remarkable patent, the one that the king gave to I gotta make sure I get this straight. The one that the king gave to Hamilton and Kirk is what we're talking about. The contents of this remarkable patent afford a striking illustration to the high-handed tyranny of Charles I, without the slightest regard for the settlers in the colony or the interests of the former patentees, Baltimore, Guy, and Falkland, and so on, who had expended large sums of money developing the resources of the island. He gives away to strangers all their valuable possessions held under grants from his father, King James. So he just fucking just strips everybody of everything. Like, what a fucking... Oh, how do you not just, like, start, like, a punk rock band in the 1600s? I don't really understand it. It just says here, settlers were not to dwell within 6 miles of the shores, and practically all their rights were given over to the ship fishermen who from the west of England... to the ship fishermen from the west of England. Special power is given to the patentees to collect taxes from all strangers being settlers. Under this charter, Sir David Kirk went out to Newfoundland and took possession of all of Lord Baltimore's property. On this grant obtained by fraud and court influence, the Devonshire fishermen always based their claim to exclusive rights of fishing and the right to banish the settlers from the shore. Well, fuck you guys, is all I have to say about that. That is just like, oh man, what a... Oh, isn't history fun to learn about? Doesn't it just like... Really, just the more I read about it, the more I just say to myself, nothing really fucking changes, does it? Like, we find a new way to, like, polish a turd, but it doesn't. Oh, okay. I'm gonna need some more wine. Fuck. Okay, it's so depressing. Dangers here. I don't know what I've got written out. It's okay. So it was not under Sir David Cook. Everyone was a dickhead. And yeah, it would seem the crown did all it could to destroy the settlements and to injure the settlers who had already been there. Like that was D.W. wrote that in fucking 125 years ago. Couldn't seem more. Start. Oh yeah, and I wrote here start again. So I guess this is worth reading out loud too. Fortunately, the king had no force to... Oh yeah, right. So this is kind of good. This is good. King James made all these laws, but he actually gave so little of a shit that fortunately the king had no force to carry out his tyrannical policy. The charter was a dead letter. The planters continued to live about the harbors, creeks, and coves of the east coast from Cape Race to Bonavista. The densest population was in the neighborhood of St. John's. None of the noble patentees exercised any special control in this neighborhood, at least over the English settlers, or anywhere else except in the neighborhood of Fairland. They owned 2 rooms in St. John's Harbor, and these remained their sole possession. One was about the present Queen's Wharf and Messrs. March and Harvey and Company's premises. The other room was directly blah, 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 known as the Naval Dock and Storehouse. This is still owned by the people who gives a shit. Cool. So, yeah, that's great. I do have, there's a mention, okay, so, this is worth mentioning one more time. I'm going to make a cut point here. Yeah, Devonshire. Okay. Let me just read my notes here. So we talked about Devonshire for... Okay, yeah. Okay. There is a copy of Kirk's patent to the crown that fucked over everybody. I'm not going to get into that. Sorry, I just lost my place in my notes for a second there. So we do get into Devonshire again for a second. Take a drink. And it's not in praise this time. We're not just like... It's not DW being like, I'm from Devonshire. In fact, it might seem the other way. Basically what's happened with Devonshire is that... there's the Newfoundland settlers. If anyone's trying to like catch up at this point, because there's a lot of sort of players in the game, there's the Newfoundland settlers and then there's the fishermen from Western England of Devonshire. So there's the settlers and there's the Western fishermen. The Western fishermen are actually having more rights and are able to exert power over the settlers who were there full time, started the whole fucking thing, keep the whole operation running, as far as I'm concerned, or from what I can tell so far. So they come over from Devonshire with their patents, their rights, their yada yada yada, all their favors from the king and shit. And then they, of course, this is going to clash with the permanent settlers, descended from the boys who came over, fucking century ago. I don't know, probably when it was really, really hard. Right now we're like, oh no, Snowmageddon, but like, imagine it being 1550. Okay, so we did. So anyway, so this is the difference in the two groups of like the Devonshire. So sometimes I mention the Devonshire fishermen and the settlers, who are different people. sometimes we say fishermen, it can be kind of confusing. So we had, so at the time, and not only this, were all these people coming over from Devonshire and Western England, taking all the proceeds, taking all the trade, doing all the trade with everybody, and like going fucking off back to England. Not only that, but because the trade was so good, Devonshire, who makes all the boats and all the sails and everything, their local economy was booming. So they're doing great like 2 times, and we're just like, yeah, why don't you just tax us too? Yeah, just like put a tax on us, and don't let us within 6 feet of the shore, because that's really fucking cool to do. So yeah, long story short, you're welcome, Devonshire, you shipbuilding arseholes. I don't know. Okay, so yeah, there's a quote here on page 145. Looks like I got a whole bunch here. Yeah, Devonshire was largely invested in the fishery. The Western courtiers, powerful at court, used their influence with the king to carry out the selfish, grasping policy of Devon. This is kind of what I was just saying. For 200 years following, we shall always find the Courtenays, Carews, Northcots, and other great county families uniformly assisting to keep Newfoundland simply as a fishing place for their countrymen. This is not me shitting on anybody's family name. That's what your great-great-great-grandfather did. He was, cool. Anyway, fishing place. The fatal effect of this influence really begins during King Charles' reign. So yeah, good, great. It's clearly a good thing that we take all the money and everything that's made here, using the resources here, and bringing them somewhere else. Why does this keep happening? Okay, so it says here, paralyzing all progress and advancement. It was a fatal barrier alike to agriculture and peaceful development of the great resources of the island. A Devonian myself, this is DW speaking from the heart, saying his family is from Devon. He says a Devonian, or Devonshire in Alzone. Anyway, as a Devonian myself, I would be utterly recreant to my duty as a historian if I did not fully set forth the dire effects of West Country influence upon the progress of the colony. Well, goddamn DW, you just joined the team. That's great. He's like, yeah, these are my people, but we kind of didn't really help in fucking everything over. And he felt like it was his duty as an historian to admit that. I don't know if it was his shame or whatever. That's cool. Right here, it's just an important point, I guess, I highlighted here. Whilst nothing can palliate the selfish and persistent attitude of the Devonshire traders towards the island, the only possible excuse for their conduct lies in the ignorance of the age and the claim, or pretended claim, which the West Countrymen set up, that Newfoundland was their own possession, gained by their strong right arms, without aid from the crown, and defended against all foreign foes by their own dauntless courage. The real blame attaches to government, who permitted such a destructive policy to be carried out in the first place. In all ages, the rule of traders has been selfish and narrow. Bacon had the Devonshire man in his mind when, in his essay to plantations, he said, "Let not the government of any plantation depend upon too many counsellors and undertakers in the country that planteth, but upon a temperate number, and let those be rather noblemen and gentlemen than merchants, for they look ever to the present gain." Man. Oh, God save the Queen. Okie dokie. Yeah, so that's anyway, I'm in with DW, I'm out with the Crown. That's cool. Moving, fuck, God, as painful as reading this book is, the contents therein are actually sometimes more fucking painful to read. I just have here, fuck's sakes, shows we imagine anxious, very good, the king, but they're just shitting on King Charles I. King Charles I sucks the big one. They really, fuck, it just, how imminent must have been the danger, how terrible the anxiety and fear of the chief magistrate, when it nerved his worship's poor, different tongue to insist most studiously, even in the august presence of majesty, on the necessity of sending off the royal ships, Perhaps the most striking part of this story is the arrogance of Laud, the swelling pride in the little Protestant Wolsey, with his vague threat to annihilate the Turkish pirates. Oh, right, I forgot to mention the Turkish. Okay, so we're gonna back up. I'm sorry. Fun little quote. So we've already talked about pirates in the last bit, and before I mentioned Turkish pirates, which is fun because we're like, how did the Turkish pirates get here? And for sure, there was definitely some Turkish pirates, but not to say that they were not all Turkish pirates, but some of the Turkish pirates were actually Frenchmen and Englishmen and Spaniards and Portuguese and other people who were actually sailing under the flag of being Turkish pirates. I don't know if that's the same flag now, but and I don't know why. I don't know why they were pretending to be Turkish pirates. I guess that was beneficial in some way, maybe because you weren't part of Europe at the time. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, Turkish pirates. Oh my goodness, how could I forget? Anyway, so we were under threat from Turkish pirates, on top of everything else, on top of all the lovely things that were going on at the time. So we're under attack from Turkish pirates, on top of everything else. And again, it was just kind of like, hey, King Charles, would you, please, for the love of fuck, send over something? Would you just, because right now we've got a bit of what you'd call a newish problem, or more like an addition to the pirate problem. And our Navy is really shitty. At the best of times, King James sent over 2 ships that Vaughan, our old buddy, had requested to help defend the area. And we got 1 man-of-war. Baltimore lobbied for 1 British man-of-war to be sent over from the Royal Fleet to defend Newfoundland with all of the resources, and for how fucking good it was, we're like, you get 1 ship, make the best of it. Oh my god, it's been like this for 400 years. Which again, them sending 3 ships, and no one else ever came. It's like anyone stopped by and was like, hey, you guys need some defense or anything like that. No. We were just like, no, that's fine. We got 3 ships. We should be good. That one's 80 years old, but this one, well, it's called a man-of-war, so it sounds cool. Hopefully it scares them into going away. Anyway, did you guys own the place or something? Do you guys own the place? Oh, cool. Do you have any ships? No, none for us. Okay, cool. Moving on. So page 146. So all of this bullshit. So there's just an extract about him trying to get ships that was just fucking denied, basically. And I mean, it's quoted here. DW, I'm on the same page with you, man. If you're listening or watching this, or wherever you're to, I don't know which way you went, or if you were reincarnated as a pine marten or something. Pitcher plant, maybe. Imagine if DW got reincarnated as a pitcher plant. Anyway, I digress. So, this extract gives a vivid picture of the times, a remarkable illustration of the character of Charles I. Fucking idiot. We can imagine the anxious mayor galloping for his life to save the great fleet of merchantmen on whose safety hung the lives and fortunes of half the seamen from Devon, Dorset, Cornwall, and Somerset. The answer of the king shows his utter incapacity to appreciate the vital interests of his subjects. How differently Elizabeth or Cromwell would have acted. All their pride and patriotism would have been roused by this daring attack on Englishmen by outlandish pirates. And then there's the part that I read you, how imminent must have been the danger, how horrible the anxiety and fear of the chief magistrate when a nerves worship poor different tongue, blah, 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 not gonna do it. So to the Turkish pirates, how much more practical it would have been had he used his influence, had King Charles I used his influence with his royal master to send him, not him, someone else. Someone else used his influence with his royal master to send immediate help to the endangered Newfoundland fleet. So, could you imagine if we'd done something about it? Just another real pain in the ass. And we're still, at this point, we're going head-to-head with the French. Down at the bottom of the page here, it calls them colonies of ruthless foes. So that's cool. Right now, we're kind of, this is mentioned 1632. Back to Kirk. Okay, so then we sort of go back to Sir Daniel Kirk. And it turns out Kirk was a bit of a G, actually, because Kirk, he was such a son of a bitch that not only did he go, because he was given the bounty, which gave him, like, the bounty over, not bounty, but the fucking jurisdiction. I don't know. God, there's so many words. He gave him the power over all of Newfoundland, so he went around collecting taxes from fucking everybody. And I don't just mean, like, settlers, shoremen, and foreigners. He took taxes from, like, the colonists as well, like some of the, like, you know, the other kind of higher, the guys who thought they were top shit before. Now he comes in and he's like, give me some more of your money. So he was such a G, even the English merchant arsehole types had to bow to him. Which, of course, turns out that this caused some people to look into his bullshit. So Kirk was it. It actually says in the book that there's like a Scottish saying that was like, always make money honestly, but always make money, right? Like, so Kirk loved money, I suppose, a lot more than doing things by the book. So eventually, because he was being such a shitheel, people started to look into his activities. And then when people started looking into his activities, people started to protest. And then when those people started to protest, they started to write the king. And then they wrote the king, and then Liam checks his notes. So they wrote to the king, it led to an investigation. Of course, Kirk tried to appeal the investigation. And ultimately, what is called in the book, the tyrannical old sea captain was kicked to the curb. Talk to you the fucking week, Kirk, you piece of shit. Then we have here, moving on a little bit, I have, oh god, there's a big old chunk about Sir David Kirk. He's just like, he was just a dickhead. Like, he ran, like, tavern type shit, and he charged rooms, stuff under the table, he skeeted people out of stuff, he apparently burned a couple things down. I don't know, he was just a bit of an arsehole. He had a lot of power, and he overreached, and he got the boot. So, justice served. As much as King Charles was a bit of a dickhead, he was good. So then, DW makes a note that at this time, so around 1623, 1630, DW makes a note that people were getting treated like shit in Virginia. There was white slavery going on in Bermuda at the time, and there are a few tales of people actually, like, bailing off of open ships, to just, like, I guess in passing by the island or whatever, like, they would bail and just make a go for it in Newfoundland, because they knew it was, like, a colony, but, pardon me, your conditions were actually a lot better in Newfoundland than they would have been, say, in Bermuda or in New England at the time. There was some kind of Civil War-ish dispute, there was a bit of a civil goings-on happening in New England at the time. This is when, so he makes it with people with boats. We even had to, actually, truth be told, because we're talking about early we're getting into a new section about trade and stuff in New England, and I don't know, all these sections only seem to last like a fucking page. He jumps all over the place, and I'm sorry if this seems like it's disconnected from thing to thing, but believe me, reading it is it's a mishmash. It's like a Jackson Pollock, just word for word. It's all over the fucking place. Anyway, so we even had to bail Virginia out for food in 1623. There was considerable trade going on. So we started to talk a bit about the early trade between New England and Newfoundland at the time. A bit of a civil war happening, yada yada yada. Doubling back over my own notes. And so while this stuff was going on in New England at the time, I think there was, I'm not sure what the civil dispute is. I mean, forgive me if I sound fucking ignorant, because I am. But, there's some sort of civil war. I know it's not the War of Independence, it was like 1776, but like 1600s, so there's some shit. Anyway, a lot of dates. Anyway, it's all going down there, and so at this time, because part of the British are part of that dispute down there, Newfoundland is considered a sort of royal territory, but like at the very least neutral. Like, we're definitely not in that way. It's not really decided. We're kind of a position, but I mean, you wouldn't want to. I mean, if you were like one of the colonists in New England or something at the time, you probably wouldn't want to venture into Newfoundland waters, because we were more England-ish at the time. We started to talk a bit about the early trade between New England and Newfoundland, which again there was a lot of going on, and really like it was so bad with New England at the time, and this is kind of why Newfoundland, again, this particular dispute in New England, were important because King Charles is so paranoid that anybody who is sailing over from England to hit Newfoundland first or to go to New England or whatever, you all have to swear allegiance to the crown in order to go. That's like it's probably not even your full fee. It's probably just fucking part of your fee. It might even be here in the book somewhere, in an appendage or an addendum or a footnote or a hand note. Anyway, so we're doubting people's loyalty. Anybody heading to Newfoundland, King Charles is still being a piece of shit, and all the while, and there's political, economical, social. So the rising fishery in New England at the time. So all this is sort of going. So New England's becoming a greater player on the world stage, certainly in terms of fishing and resources. And it's starting to actually draw people away from Newfoundland, because we used to be, the big fish in a small or a big cod in an ocean. Anyway, we were doing pretty good, and then New England comes along, and because I guess it's part of like the states and everything that's going on there, they're connected. They're not an island way up north somewhere. They became a real fishing hub. So now they're starting to draw people away from Newfoundland, which is becoming a concern. Also because Charles seems to be supporting New England a hell of a lot more than he is Newfoundland, which isn't doing us any fucking favors. And again, it's almost like we were here first and put in like a whole shit ton of fucking work to get your whole enterprise off the fucking ground as like a defensive and an economical and political advantage. Okay, anyway, so that was becoming the rise of the fishery in New England was becoming a concern for the people in Newfoundland. A lot of these fishermen used to come here, trade, boost the economy, and that sort of thing, and it was starting to sort of piss us off. So in dealing with that, then King James had the fucking fantastic idea. He actually started to outfit fishing boats as English man-o'-wars. So he was just retrofitting any old fishing vessels and shit to become man-o'-war fighting vessels for us, because that's all we need. It's not like there's like pirates here from Turkey. How did the Turkey? It's like the fucking Borg showed up. Do you know? Anyway, so getting Star Trek-y on you now. There's that. The New England trade, blah, blah, blah. So, which I just mentioned, so I didn't take much notes on the last couple pages. There is the New England trade, which is the last note I mentioned. And then we get to the end of chapter 6, which leads us to an appendix, which is cool. I'm not gonna take too much time on the appendix. I'm getting near the end of it. There's this one. So we mentioned the Star Chamber rules, which was sort of all of King James' stupid, shitty, fucking rules and impositions that he gave us all, sort of back in the day. So here, listen, I'm not going to get through that, or some stuff on Sir David Kirk, or the Hill to Kirk, or Kirk to Hill, or any of the letters, or anything like that, because we start a new chapter in a second. But I will read quickly the 20 rules of the 20 Star Chamber rules as given out by Sir Charles I, with maybe some additions by Charles II. And if that's his son, I can only assume maybe we're going to find out he's just as much of a dickhead as his father. So, rule number 1, that Her Majesty's subjects may take bait of fish in Newfoundland provided they submit to established orders. Don't know what that means. That no alien take bait. Well, we don't have aliens, but I guess that means no one else gets bait. You can't buy fucking bait. That no planter, settlers, that no planter cut down any wood or plant within 6 miles of seashore. Fuck you. That no inhabitant or planter take up best stages before arrival of fishermen. Fuck you. We live here, but we are not allowed to be there first. 5, that no master or owner of ships transport seamen or fishermen to Newfoundland unless belonging to the ship's company. Real cool. Number 6, that no person carry more than 60 persons to 100 tons. I'm sure physics was deadly in the 1600s. That every 5th man be a green man that is not a seaman. So let's make sure that 20% of everybody on the ship has no idea what the fuck they're doing. Number 8, that masters of ships provide victuals in England according to number of men for whole voyage, salt only accepted. So we want a piece of fucking whatever you got. Fuck you. 9, that no fishing ship part hence for Newfoundland before the month of March. Cool. Ice? I don't know. They don't want to lose ships to ice? I don't know. Fuck, that one almost seems reasonable. 10, that masters give bond of £100 to respective mayors, that respective mayors not to carry any persons to Newfoundland as foresaid, and to bring back such as they carry out or shall employ with fish for market voyages. Reading that one cold, not sure what it means. 11, that no master take up a stage with less than 25 men. So unless you got a crew of 25, you're not allowed to even get going in the first place, which is cool. Our family's been here for 100 years, but that's fine. We're gonna have to band together as a community to get one fucking stage on the go. This is going swimmingly. Number 12, that no fisherman or seaman remain behind after fishing is ended, because God forbid you stay, because you like, or, I don't know, want to help. Number 13, that Admiral, Vice Admiral, and Rear Admiral do put these orders in execution and preserve the peace. Yeah, because what wouldn't be peaceful about everyone getting fucked over? 14, and bring offenders for any crime into England. Free trip to England, I suppose. Sounds like you're going to get hung up for a crime anyway. 15, that they proclaim on 20th of September Her Majesty's orders, or yearly, 16, and to keep journals. You gotta write in a journal. He's making you learn to read and write, which sounds good, but then he's like, but what are your feelings on it? So in my free time, you're 17, that recorders and justices of the peace be joined in commission with mayors. Don't care. 18, that reasonable fines be imposed on offenders. Reasonable. Like a trip to England to be fucking persecuted. 19, that a bill should be prepared for the Great Seal for confirmation, a set charter with these additional powers. 20, that the clause touching the marshal should be reviewed by the Attorney General. There's so many abbreviations. Who should present to board some way of fuck, I don't care anymore. It's page 155. We start the next chapter on page 158 with fucking, I don't know, some other shit. Anyway, that's for tomorrow. You've heard enough of me. I've heard enough of myself. This has been fun and frustrating. Clearly, the government has been, the crown, there's a difference between the crown and the government. Everybody sucks! Anyway, guys, this has been Liam Small, Abridges, A History of Newfoundland by D.W. Prowse. 20 pages at a time, every day, until the fucking bars reopen! Stay healthy.